So let's continue with our discussion with regard to Jima'a. In continuation, Jima'a, these are the main or the different circumstances affecting criminal liability. It may uh, it may justify the action of a person and it will erase the penalty, or it may exempt the person from liability. It may reduce the penalty, or it may increase the penalty. So these are the different circumstances affecting the criminal liability, as we said in the previous discussion: the justifying, the exempting, the mitigating, the aggravating, alternative, and the two others, the the absolutory cause and the extenuating circumstances. As you can observe in the Jima, the justifying is the senior safug, the exempting inacu, we are mitigating the Jim, PB, PIA, and the aggravating with the acronym ACRA, PUCAR, PIDA, CHUBAC, and the alternative, which is the red. Okay? And the absolutory cause and the extenuating. So let's talk one by one these different circumstances, because we believe that bulk of the questions in Law 1, okay, were from uh, GMA. Okay, so you must familiarize yourself with whether that is justifying, exempting, mitigating, aggravating, or alternative. At the same time, what are the requisites or the elements for these different circumstances, okay, to be considered as either justifying, exempting, mitigating, aggravating, or alternative. So now in justifying, those wherein the acts of the actor are in accordance with the law. Hence, you are justified. There is no criminal and civil liability because there is no crime. So your action is justifiable. It is in accordance with the law. In other words, the actor did not transgress the law. Okay? The actor did not transgress the law. Hence, his action is in accordance with the law and he is justified. Take note, justifying circumstance, no criminal liability, no civil liability, except in paragraph number 4, the avoidance of greater evil of or injury because of the benefit suffered by the person. Okay? So, first we have the self-defense. Okay? Pinagtanggol mo yung sarili mo. Pero, how can you say so? Okay? That is a self-defense. Okay? So, what are the requisites of self-defense? Yan. But before that, okay, what's the rationale? What's the reason why self-defense is being considered justifying? Okay? Because it would be impossible for the state to protect its citizen. Okay? It would be impossible for the state to protect all. Okay? It will be impossible for the state to protect all its citizens. Yan. So, also, a person cannot just give up his right without any resistance being offered. So, usually, pag binayolate yung right mo, there will be resistance na gagawin. Yan. So, this right in self-defense includes defense of person, defense of right protected by law. Okay? Like defense of property and defense of chastity. So, self-defense can invoke when there is already destruction of your property. And also, self-defense can be invoked if there is already violation of your chastity. Yan. So, in self-defense, it's not only pertaining to the body of the person. It also covers defense of property of that person and defense of chastity of that person, especially a woman. So yan ang coverage ng self-defense. Now, what are the important elements? There are three elements of self-defense. We have there the unlawful aggression, okay, the what you call URL. So, under the unlawful aggression, it is a physical act. Okay, so ulitin natin. Unlawful aggression. We have there the reasonable means employed to prevent and repel it. And the number 3 is lack of sufficient provocation on the person defending himself. So in this, the code is U, R, and L. Okay, so the number 1 is U, unlawful aggression. It is a physical act manifesting danger to life or limb. It is either actual or imminent. So, when we say unlawful aggression, there must be a physical act manifesting danger to the life or the body of the person. So, when we say there is a physical act, there must be an overt act, okay, that may cause danger to the life or limb of a person. It might be an actual or an imminent. When we say actual, real, talagang binubugbog ka na. Yun, nandyan na, dumapo na. That's why actual, tinamaan ka na. Ng bala, nasaksak ka na. So that is actual danger. So you can defend now yourself. Okay? Because there is now an actual aggression. Okay? Next, we have imminent, unlawful aggression. So what about imminent? Paparating pa lang. Yan na, susuntukin ka na, dadapo na. Okay? Pag dumapo, that's already actual or real. Okay? Aggression. Pero pag akmang susuntukin ka pa lang, that is already imminent. Or bubunutan ka pa lang ng barel. Or sasaksakin ka pa lang. Yan, that is what you call imminent unlawful aggression. So, the unlawful aggression may be actual or imminent. Actual or real. And the second one is imminent. Yan. Alam niyo, tinanong ito sa board. The question goes like this. Okay? Which among the following is not an unlawful aggression? Which among the following is not an unlawful aggression? A, actual. B, real. C, imminent. D, threatening. Yan. So, anong sagot? The answer there is letter D, threatening. A mere threat cannot give you, okay, the reason to defend yourself because there is no actual or imminent danger. Pag sinabing, bukas di ka nasisikatan ng araw, tapos binaril mo na, yung nagsabi sa'yo nun, can you say that that is a self-defense? No, because there is no, okay, unlawful aggression there. Okay, so unlawful aggression may be actual or real, and we have imminent. Okay? Next, we have the number 2, the R, reasonable necessity of the means employed to prevent or repel it. Yan. So, when can you say that it is reasonable? Okay? The means were used to prevent or repel. Means be the necessary and there is no other way to prevent or repel it. Yan. So, the means must be reasonable. So, these are the requisite. Kailangan yung ginawa mo ay reasonable to prevent or repel the action. Yan. So, that is reasonable means a necessity of the means employed to prevent or repel it. In other words is, kailangan balance. Okay? Hindi yung sinampal ka, binaril mo. Hindi yun self-defense kasi hindi yun balance. Okay? Pinitik ka, pinasabog mo. So, you consider the imbalance. Yan. Kung binugbog ka, nakipagbugbugan ka rin, yan. That is now what you call reasonable means employed to prevent or repel it. So, there is no specific weight. Basta ang kailangan dito, you can prove that there is a balance or equality of your response on the unlawful aggression made against you. Yan. So, means were used to prevent or repel, that there it is necessary, and there is no other way to prevent it. Kung pwede ka namang tumakbo, tumakbo ka na lang. Yan. And there must be, the means must be reasonable. Sabi nga nila, under the rules of self-defense, the doctrine is stand your ground when in the right. Yan. Stand your ground when in the right, which may be invoked when the defender is unlawfully assaulted and the aggressor is armed with a weapon. Yan. That's the principle of self-defense also. They stand your ground when in the right place. Okay. Next, we have the gauge of reasonable necessity is the instinct of self-preservation. Yan. So, sabi ko nga, there is no definite na ano talaga. It depends upon the unlawful aggression made against you. Okay? It depends on the nature. Yan. And the weapon used. The physical condition, the character, and the other circumstances or factors. The last is the lack, or the letter L, lack of sufficient provocation on the part of the person defending himself. Kailangan hindi ikaw ang nag-provoke. When no provocation at all was given to the aggressor by the person defending himself. Wala kang ginawa tapos binugbog ka. Wala kang ginawa tapos pinutukan ka. Wala kang ginawa tapos sinaksak ka. So, yun. No provocation. So, pwede kang gumante. Ay, pwede kang dumipensa. Okay? When even the provocation was given by you. Okay? But such was not sufficient to cause aggression on the part of you, or on the part of the attacker rather, okay? When even if the provocation was given by the person defending himself, okay, such was not sufficient to cause violent aggression on the part of the attacker. Yan. Halimbawa, pinitik mo lang yung tao, tapos sinutukan ka lang ng baril. Can you defend yourself? Ikaw naman ang nauna. Pwede. Okay? Bakit? Yung provocation, sir, ako ang nunang nag-provoke. Oo nga, yung provocation na ginawa mo, hindi naman sufficient para tutukan ka ng baril. So, pag naagaw mo yung baril at nagagawan kayo at pumutok at natamaan siya at siya'y namatay, you can still invoke self-defense. Why? Because even if provocation was given by you, such was not sufficient to cause violent aggression on the part of the attacker. Yan. So, you can invoke self-defense. Basta, claim nila na nag-provoke ka, pero pakita mo na yung provocation na ginawa mo ay hindi sapat para tutukan kanya ng barel or saksakin kanya, then gumanti ka lang sa ginawa niya, kaya yon. That can still be a self-defense. Lack of sufficient provocation. Yung provocation na ginawa mo hindi sufficient. Okay? Para gawin niya sa iyo. Kaya mo nagawa sa kanya yun. Okay? Next, when even if the provocation were sufficient, it was not given by the person defending himself. Oh. Diba? When even if the provocation were sufficient. Okay? Sabihin mong ang bumugbog sa kanya yung kaibigan mo na kasama mo that time. Naglalakad kayo, may kasama kang kaibigan, yung kaibigan mo binugbog niya yung isang tao. Ngayon naman, okay, ang ginawa nila, dahil nakatakbo ng mabilis yung kaibigan mo, ikaw lang binugbog. Yan. Now, nung ikaw ang binugbog, at yun nakipagbugbugan ka rin, at mas nabugbog mo sila, pwede pa rin yun, self-defense pa rin yun. Kahit kayo ang nauna, pero hindi ikaw yung kaibigan mo, pero bakit ikaw na ngayon ang binubugbog, pwede mong idepensa ang sarili mo. When even if the provocation were sufficient, it was not given by the person defending himself. It was not given by you, so you can defend yourself. So lack of sufficient provocation, the part of the person defending himself. Okay? And when even if provocation was given by the person defending himself, the attack was not proximate or immediate to the act of provocation. Kung nakalipas na ang araw, halimbawa, binugbog mo siya. Oo, totoo, binugbog mo. Okay? Binugbog mo siya, pero last week pa. Ngayon, nagkita kayo, binugbog ka rin. Can that person tell na he can invoke that is self-defense? No more. Because self-defense, there must be no interruption of time. Okay? The action must be proximate. Self-defense must be proximate or immediate. Nung ginawa mo sa kanya yun, dapat nakipagbugbugan na siya, hindi yung after how many time elapsed. Okay? So yun. Wala na pong provocation doon. Okay? Ang nangyari is parang ginawa niya is vindication na yan. So that is what you call lack of sufficient provocation, the part of the person defending himself. Okay? Yan. Next, we have, when we say sufficient, para may rason, is that proportionate to the damage of the act and adequate to still one, okay, to its commission. Okay, next, we have kinds of self-defense, defense of chastity, defense of property, defense in libel. So these are the different kinds of self-defense. Okay, if that is, you are being endangered with your chastity, with your property, like for example, gusto kang i-rape sa chastity, then pwede mong i-depensa ang sarili mo. Okay? You kinuha yung property mo, you can defend your property. Okay? And a person, okay, make libelous remarks, yan, libel is in progress, you can defend yourself. Yan. If in case of self-defense, the burden of proof now is on the accused. Kaya nagkakaroon tayo ng reverse trial. Kaya nagkakaroon tayo ng tinatawag na reverse trial. Okay? So the burden of proof shift. Normally, the burden of proof must be in the prosecution. Okay? But in self-defense, the burden of proof will be now transferred or it will reverse to the accused. So ikaw na nakusadong magpatunay na self-defense talaga yung ginawa mo. That's the only time that the normal sequence of trial will be changed. Okay, number 2. So we have defense of relatives. What are the elements of defense of relatives? Parehas lang yan. Yung justifying, yung sa may self-defense, defense of relatives, and defense of stranger. Parehas yung unang dalawang elements nila. Number 1, we have unlawful aggression. Number 2, reasonable necessity of the means employed to prevent or repel the attack. Number 3, in case of provocation was given by the person attacked, that the person making the defense had no part in such provocation. Yan. In case provocation was given by the person attacked, that the person making the defense had no part in such provocation. Defense of relatives. Okay? So, unlawful aggression. There is physical danger. Okay? Into your relatives. Relatives means yung tatay mo, nanay mo, the ascendants, the descendants, yung lolo. Okay? Your ascendants, yung tatay mo, nanay mo, lolo mo, lola mo. Lululuhan, lalolahan, yun. Yung descendants naman, yung anak mo, yung apo mo, yan. Okay. Relatives, your husband, your wife, that is also relatives. Your brothers, sisters, yan, even adopted, so these are relatives. Yan. So, and it will reach until the 4th civil degree by affinity or consanguinity. So, yung mga brother-in-law, sister-in-law, mother-in-law, mga yan, father-in-law, yan. grandmother-in-law, grandfather-in-laws, yan, with the same level. Sabi nga, by affinity and by consanguinity. Fourth civil degree. And the fourth civil degree is until your first cousin. Yun ang last. So, pwedeng invoke ang hanggang fourth cousin, ay hanggang first cousin lang pala, hindi ibig sabihin na fourth civil degree, fourth cousin, mali yun. So, hanggang first cousin ang first civil degree. Yan. So, we have nanay, tatay, lolo, lola, lolo-lolohan, lola-lolahan. Anak, apo, apo-apuhan, apo sa tuhod. Yan. Okay? Descendants mo yon. Then, we have your asawa, tapos kapatid, then mga in-laws with the same level. Okay? Within fourth civil degree. Kung sila ang inaatake, okay? Kahit sabihin nating sila ang nag-provoke, sila ang nauna, okay? Ni-rescue mo sila at ikaw ang dumipensa sa kanila. Halimbawa, kinuha mo yung bumubugbog sa kanya, then ikaw na rin ang bubugbog. Nung babarilin siya, ikaw ang bumaril sa taong babaril. Kung sasaksakin siya, binugbog mo yung taong sasaksak, tapos nasaksak mo yung taong sumaksak. These are example of defense of relatives. Sir, kahit po ba yung relatives ko pa ang nauna? Yes. In case provocation was given by your relatives being attacked, that you, making the defense, had no part in such provocation, you can invoke defense of relatives. Okay? So, relatives entitled to defense, spouse, ascendants, descendants, legitimate, natural, or adopted brothers or sisters, relatives by affinity in same degree, and relatives by consanguinity within the fourth civil degree. So, when we say affinity, this is relative by what? Okay? When we say affinity, relative by marriage. Okay? When we say relative by consanguinity, this is relatives by blood. So, until fourth civil degree, until the last will be your first cousin. That will be the fourth civil degree of consanguinity. Yan. So, after the first cousin, they cannot be considered now as relatives. They are now a stranger. Kaya sa batas natin, class, pinagbabawal din na mag-asawa ang first cousin. Okay? Yun ang di mo pwedeng asawahin, ang first cousin mo. Pero second cousin, third cousin, fourth cousin, it is now legal. Pwede yun. Okay? So, these are the rules under the defense of relatives. Yan. Halimbawa, yung tatay mo, nakita mo, binubugbog. Tanda-tanda ng tatay mo, binubugbog ng mga binata. Kinuha mo yung mga binata, pinagbubugbog mo sila. Defense of relatives. Yan. Okay? Next, we have the third element need not take place. The relative dependent may even be the original aggressor. All that is required to justify the act of the relatives depending is that he takes no part in such provocation. Dapat wala kang alam sa provocation na dahilan ng pinag-aawayan nila. Kaya mayroong away. Eksaktong napadaan ka o nandun ka na, to the rescue ka. Kasi relatives mo yon. That's defense of relatives. Okay? Next, we have defense of stranger, yung pangatlo. The defense of stranger, okay, yan na yung outside the fourth civil degree. So, what's the elements? Parehas. Yung unang dalawa, unlawful aggression, reasonable necessity of means employed to prevent or repel the attack. Yan. And the third one is the person defending himself be not induced by the person defending be not induced by revenge, resentment, or other evil motives. Okay, kailangan hindi ka to the rescue sa ibang tao because of revenge, resentment, or other evil motive. O, nag-aaway si Pedro at Maria. On the point of struggle, nag-escalate yung struggle nila, to the rescue ka, pinagtanggol mo si Maria. Napatay mo si Pedro kasi nga sasaksakin niya si Maria. Inunahan mong saksakin si Pedro. Di ba? Okay? So, inagaw mo inagaw mo, rather sasaksakin ni Pedro si Maria, now inagaw mo yung kutsilyo ni Pedro, tapos naisaksak mo sa kanya. So that is defense of stranger. Nandun ka, through the rescue ka, parang hero. Pero, ginawa mo pala yon kasi meron kayong relasyon ni Maria. That cannot be defense of stranger. Why? There is evil motive. So yun. Tandaan yung third element. The person depending be not induced by revenge, resentment, or other evil motive. Sinaksak mo si Pedro, yun pala, mayroon siyang atraso sa'yo. Ginawa mo yung pagkakataon para makabawi, so hindi rin pwede na defense of stranger kahit nung ginawa mo yon ay yung akmang nag-aaway silang mag-asawa. Because there is the ingredient of revenge. So hindi pwede yon. Again, unlawful aggression, reasonable necessity of means employed to prevent or repel it, and you who depending or you the person depending must not be induced by revenge, resentment, or other evil motive. Talagang wala kang ibang motibo, kundi tumulong lang kasi nakita mo yung taong mayroon nang mangyayari. Either mamamatay, masasaktan, kaya to the rescue ka. And yung taong tinulungan mo ay hindi mo relatives. Okay? That is what you call defense of a stranger. A relative not included in defense of relative is included in defense of a stranger. Hence, even a close friend or a distant relative is a stranger within the meaning of paragraph 3. Meaning to say, beyond fourth civil degree, you are now a stranger or you are defending a stranger. That's defense of stranger. Okay? So, next, state of necessity or avoidance of greater evil or injury. State of necessity is also known as avoidance of greater evil or injury. Yan. A person in order to avoid an evil or injury, does an act which causes damage to another following these different requisites. So, the other term for state of necessity is avoidance of greater evil or injury. Yan. What are the requisites? That the evil sought to be avoided actually exists. Meron talagang pangyayari na hindi maganda. Yan. That the injury feared be greater than that to avoid it. Na yung iiwasan mong hindi magandang pangyayari ay grabe kaysa sa ginawa mo. Yan. That the injury feared be greater than that done to avoid it. That there be no other practical and less harmful means of preventing it. Okay? Wala nang ibang paraan. Kaya mamili ka na. Okay? So these are the elements of state of necessity or avoidance of greater evil or injury. Okay? So that the evil sought to be avoided actually exists, that the injury feared be greater than that done to avoid it. Mayroon talagang danger. Okay? Mayroong masamang pangyayari. Okay? At yung pangyayari na i-avoid mo ay sobra. Okay? Kaysa sa nagawa mo. Okay? At walang ibang paraan kundi yung ginawa mo lang. Kasi nga, state of necessity. Dahil sa matinding pangangailangan. Ganon. Dahil sa yun ang dapat na gawin. Kasi nga kung hindi, may mangyayari. Okay? State of necessity or avoidance of greater evil or injury. So, a state of necessity exists when there is a clash between unequal rights the lesser right giving way to the greater right. Okay? So, yan. Aside from the three requisites stated in the law, it should also be added that the necessity must not be due to negligence or violation of any law by the actor. Yan. Now, this is the example. Nagda-drive ka. Okay? Drive ka, like let's say, sa mountainous area. Okay? Pababa. Nung pababa ka, halimbawa galing ka ng Baguio, ngayon pababa ka, ano? Usually, ang bumababa sa Baguio, pag hindi kabisado ang mag-drive, talagang bibigay yung brake mo. Lalo pag pababa ka. Okay? Especially when you are using automatic vehicle. Okay? Ngayon, nung pababa ka, biglang hindi kumagat yung preno mo. So, meaning to say, okay, nagkaroon ng mechanical malfunction. So, if you will not take control with it, mahuhulog ka sa bangin. Okay? So, ganun yun. So, nung na-lose brake ka, nakita mo talagang mahuhulog ka na sa bangin. So, ayaw mo namang mahulog sa bangin. So, what did you do? Okay? Kung ididiretso mo, kung magli-left turn ka, didiretso mo, talagang mahulog ka. If you will turn left, again, bangin din. If you will turn right, mayroong kalabaw na nandoon. So, what you did is, you turned right. Why? At nabangga mo yung kalabaw. So, is that pasok sa dito sa paragraph number 4? Yes. Because your life is precious than the kalabaw. Kasi pag nahulog ka sa bangin, sigurado patay ka. Or there's a great chance na mamamatay ka. Turn left, bangin din yon. So what you did, hinila mo to the right, then yun nga, may nabangga kang kalabaw. So, will that be a crime of malicious mischief? No. You can invoke justifying circumstance due to a state of necessity or the what you call avoidance of greater evil or injury. So, this is the only paragraph na kung saan meron kang civil liability. Because general rule, when we say justifying circumstance, no criminal liability, no civil liability. As I said, except in paragraph number 4, you are civilly liable. Why? You are civilly liable doon sa nasira mo. Bayaran mo yung kalabaw. Sir, bakit? Because of the benefits you receive. Bayaran mo na, kaysa yung buhay mo naman. Okay? Kung namatay ka, gagastos ka rin. Di mas maganda, bayaran mo na lang yun, buhay ka pa. Di ba? Because of the benefit you receive. So that is what you call state of necessity or avoidance of greater evil or injury. Okay. Next. Yan. The person whose benefits the harm has been prevented shall be civilly liable in proportion to the benefits which he may have been received. Ito sinasabi ko sa inyo. Okay, next, we have number 5. Fulfillment of duty or lawful exercise of a right or office. So what are the elements? That the accused acted in the performance of duty or in the lawful exercise of right and office. That the injury caused or offense committed by necessary consequence of the due performance of the duty or the lawful exercise of such right or office. Okay? So, yan. Now, so paano yung fulfillment of duty or lawful exercise of right or office? Okay, ganito na lang. Fulfillment or duty. I will give you example. That the accused acted in the performance of duty and in the lawful exercise of right or office. That the injury caused or offense committed be the necessary consequence of the due performance of the duty or the lawful exercise of such right or office. Yung napapanood nyo sa TV, yung police biglang nakikipaghabulan, naghahabulan sila, tapos biglang yung tao sumakay sa yung kriminal, yung offender sumakay sa kotse. Now, anong gagawin ng police? Alang tatakbo. Okay, siguro tumakbo sa una, pero nung hindi niya na mahabol, pumara siya ng tao. Tapos, kinuha yung sasakyan ng tao at ginamit niya para habulin yung hinahabol niyang kriminal. Is the police liable for carnapping? The answer there is no. Why? because that police officer is just only fulfilling his duty. Bayaran lang nila kung may masira sa sasakyan. Pero pag wala naman, ibalik nila ng maayos, so there is no crime committed by the police officer. He just acted in the performance of a duty and or in the lawful exercise of right or office. Ganun lang yon. So, fulfillment of duty or lawful exercise of right or office, that is part of justifying circumstance. Okay? Yan. Okay, next we have the number 6, obedience to superior order. Yan, obedience to superior order. Elements, there is an order. The order is for legal purpose. The means used to carry out said order is lawful. Okay? Yan. So, there is an order. The order is legal for legal purpose. The means used to carry out said order is lawful. Yan. So, the subordinate who made to comply with the order is the party which may avail of this circumstance. The officer giving the order may not invoke this. So, anong example dito? Okay, I will give you one example again. That the person is justified when he is just obeying superior order. Okay? When you are issuing a warrant of arrest, you are a police officer. You are issuing a warrant of arrest, ano? That's an order coming from the judge. Judge superior, there is a superior order. Okay? You will issue a warrant of arrest or search warrant. Nakita mo yung tao na sa loob ng bahay niya. Ayaw kang papasukin in spite giving your telling your authority. Okay? Informing him that you are police officer and that you will issue the warrant of arrest or arrest warrant. Ayaw kang papasukin. So, anong gagawin mo? Hintayin mo hanggang lumabas? So, you can break the door and window to facilitate your entrance and even your exit. Sirain mo yung pinto, bakbakin mo yung bintana, there's no problem. Pwede ka bang kasuhan ng malicious mischief? Hindi. Because that is a justifying circumstance of obedience to a superior order. Okay. And, yan, the last, the new one. Okay, that is what you call obedience to superior order. Before we proceed to exempting circumstance, there is another justifying circumstance. Okay? Under Republic Act 9262. Okay? Bago tayo dyan sa exempting na yan, yung pang-pito, kaya nga, senior SAFU, di ba? Tapos na tayo senior SAFU, yung B na lang, battered woman syndrome. Okay? A battered woman syndrome is a justifying circumstance. Ang babae, okay, yung asawa, or even sinong babae na mayroon kang dating relationship, kahit nag-date lang kayo, girlfriend mo, or you have a one-night stand, basta there is a dating relationship. Ganun kasi dinefine ng batas eh. Kahit minsan lang kayong nagkita, nagkatitigan, nagkagustuhan, there is already a dating relationship. Okay, tapos, ang ginagawa mo is binubugbog mo yung babae. O kaya physically abuse, mga yan. Okay? So, kailangan, para ma-invoke yung battered woman syndrome, kailangan 2 beses na dadaan sa cycle. Tinatanong yung sa board, there must be 2 cycles. Okay? So, yung isang cycle, dadaan sa tatlong stages yan. Yung una is the pre-battering. Pre-battering, sabihin mo, sige, magsalita ka pa dyan. Bugbugin ko na yung mukha mo, sampalin na kita. Mga ganun, mga harsh word ba? Then, after the pre-battering, nagsalita pa rin kasi. Then, nagkaroon nga yung battering stage. Yun nga, binugbog mo, yan. Okay? Then, after that, kasi sabi mo, lasing kasi. O yan, lasing ka, nabugbog mo siya. After that, nung nabugbog mo, inamo mo siya. Yun yung natawag nating tranquil period. So, pre-battering or initial stage, then the battering and the tranquil period. Pag nagawa lahat yon, nangyari yon, there is a one cycle. There is no battered woman syndrome yet. Kailangan maulit yon. Pag naulit yon, there is now the second cycle at naulit-ulit yon. Then, the woman now is considered as a battered woman. Okay? Pwede siyang tawaging battered spouse, battered wife, battered husband. Pag gano'n, di ba? Meron bang battered husband? Pwede rin. Pero woman lang. Pinag-usapan natin dito. Now, a battered woman. Ngayon, pag lasing ka, tapos binubugbog-bugbog mo siya, sige, ginawa mong punching bag, yun pala, kinikim-kim niya, ano? Kasi ilang beses na. Hindi lang dalawa, hindi lang 10, araw-araw, kalbaryo ka na niya. So, what happened? Napuno siya. Natulog ka, pinagsasaksak-saksak ka niya, kasi kabubugbog mo kanina, o binaril ka niya, o kaya ginupit niya yung mga dapat gupitin. Yun, o kaya namatay ka, yun, patay ka ngayon. Pwede mo bang kasuhan yung babae? Okay, the court will say that is justifiable because she can invoke a battered woman syndrome under Republic Act 9262. Republic Act 9262. The Anti-Violence Against Women and Their Children. Kahit girlfriend mo lang yon, ha? Kahit short time girlfriend mo lang. Basta mayroon kayong dating relationship, ano? Battered. So yun, kakasuhan ka ng mga relatives niya because of that. Okay? So, hindi ka makakasuhan. Pero actually, class, bago maging justifying yan, nung wala pa ang 9262, may nakasong nangyaring ganyan. Ang battered woman ay hindi kinonsider na justifying. Before the passage of 9262, the battered woman is just only a mitigating circumstance under the case of Marivic Hinosa versus People of the Philippines. Pero ang nangyari, nung naib sa batas ang Republic Act 9262, yun na. Battered woman became a ground for justifying circumstance. So yun ang istorya nun. Okay? So, yan. Boys, ingat. Girlfriend mo pa lang, delikado ka. Okay, next we have. So, let's proceed with the exempting circumstances. Yan. So, we've done with justifying. Now, let's talk on exempting circumstance. So, under exempting circumstances, these are or those grounds for exempting from punishment because there is one thing in the agent of the crime of any condition which makes the act voluntary or negligent. So there is a complete, there is one thing in the agent of the crime. There is complete absence, of the elements. The basis of exempting circumstance is that there is a complete absence of intelligence, complete absence of freedom of action, and complete absence of intent, and absence of negligence or imprudence on the part of the accused. So the elements of a crime, the elements of culpable felony, and the elements of intentional felony. Sa intentional, we have intelligence, freedom, intent. Sa culpable, we have intelligence, freedom, and negligence or imprudence. So complete absence of intelligence, complete absence of freedom, complete absence of intent sa kabila, and negligence naman sa kabila. Kung may kumpletong absence dito, kung walang intelligence, walang freedom, or walang intent, or walang negligence, you can invoke the exempting circumstances. So the basis is complete absence of intelligence, freedom, intent, or absence of negligence. Sa justifying, anong basis? The person did not transgress the law because his act is said to be in accordance with the law. Yun naman ang basis niya. Ito ang basis niya kaya hindi ka paparusahan kasi wala kang intelligence nung ginawa mo yan, wala kang freedom nung ginawa mo yan, wala kang intent nung ginawa mo yan, and wala kang negligence or imprudence. Okay? Yan. So, those are the lackings or wanting, complete absence. Okay? There is a crime, but there is no criminal liability arises from it because of the complete absence of any of this condition which constitute free will or voluntariness of the act. So there is no criminal liability, but there is a civil liability. There is no criminal liability, but there is a civil liability in exempting circumstance. Yun ang pagkakaiba nila sa justifying. In justifying, no criminal liability, no civil liability. Exempting, no criminal liability, there is civil liability. Except, again, in paragraph number 4. In paragraph number 4, no criminal liability, no civil liability. Okay. Yan. So, what are those circumstances under the exempting? Number 1, an imbecile or insane person, unless the latter has acted during a lucid interval. Okay? An imbecile is totally exempted from criminal liability. Yan. And the court shall order his confinement to the hospital. Okay? Yan. So, imbecility must occur during the commission of the crime. Because if it occurs after the commission of the crime, imbecility cannot be a ground already. So, imbecility or insanity must occur during the commission of the crime. Sir, what if nabaliw siya nung arraignment? Anong effect? Exempting? No. Suspension lang ng arraignment proceeding. Sir, nabaliw siya during trial. Is that an exemption? No. Suspension lang ng trial. Sir, nabaliw siya nung ongoing ng sentence, ang service of judgment. Yung sentence niya. Oh, will that be acquittal? That will be for release na? Hindi. The sentence will just only suspended. So yun ang effect. But if he is insane or imbecile during the commission of the crime, then exempting yan. Okay? That's imbecility or insanity. Imbecility at all times is considered as exempting. Insanity, it depends. Okay? Because insanity cannot be invoked as exempting if the crime happened during lucid interval. Okay? So what's the requisites? Offender is an imbecile. Offender was insane at the time of the commission of the crime. Okay. So yun lang naman ang requisites niya. Imbecility or insanity, the basis, there's anong nawala doon? Kaya bakit na-exempt ang imbecility or insanity? Complete absence of intelligence. Hindi niya alam ang kanyang ginagawa. But I want to clear it. In case of imbecility, wala tayong pag-uusapan dyan. Imbecility, exempted talaga yan. A person who is with a adult age but acted like 2 to 7 years old. Yun ang ibig sabihin ng imbecility. Yan. Tignan mo yung sarili mo. Tapos try mong mag-act ng 2 to 7 years old. Oh. Nakikita mo ba yung sarili mo na gano'n? O kung nakikita mo yung sarili mo na gano'n, lumabas ka na, commit a crime. And exempted ka. Okay? Yung gusto mo, maglaro ka pa rin ng ero-eroplanong gawa sa papel, lipad-lipad, sabi mong gano'n. O yun. Para kang imbecile. You are acting like 2 to 7 years old. Diba? But when we say insanity, ito yung tinatawag nating sinto-sinto. Sometimes may insanity na sinto-sinto, di ba? Yung normal, minsan naman hindi. Yan. So, yung time na normal siya, yung alam niya ang kanyang ginagawa, yun ang tinatawag nating lucid interval. And if he committed the crime during that period, that he is under lucid interval, kahit sabihin nating insane yan, pero normal siya nung time na yon, then he is liable for that. Because insanity person, unless he acted during lucid interval, hindi siya exempted. Okay? That's clear. Yan. An imbecile is one who, while in advanced age with mental development comparable to the children between 2 to 7 years of age. An insane is one who acted with complete deprivation of intelligence or reason, or without the least, or with total deprivation of freedom of the will. So that is paragraph. Okay? An imbecility is exempt in all cases from criminal liability. Sinabi na natin, di ba? The insane is not so exempt if it can be shown that they acted during a lucid interval. Ayun, pasok. Okay, next. Okay? Presumption is always in favor of sanity. Tandaan nyo yan, ha? Presumption. So yung defense, kailangan patunayan niya na baliw yung kliyente niya. O, di ba? So paano ba patunayan na baliw yung kliyente mo? O di, bahala ka nang dumiskarte. How will you prove that your client is insane? Next, we have paragraph. What are those instances of insanity? Dementia precox. Okay, sometimes kleptomania rin. Presence of abnormal, persistent impulse. Yung mga yan, psychological. So, it really needs. And even epilepsy sometimes can be a ground of not knowing what they are doing. Diba? Yung epilepsy naman, halimbawa, nakaangkla sa'yo, di ba? Pare, sabi niya nga, tapos biglang nag-seizure. O yun, nasakal kaya. O di, kawawa ka. Okay? Now, okay, we have also here so just read the test of volition and test of cognition. Next, paragraph number 2, a person under 9 years of age or yung tinatawag nating minority, lampasan na natin ito kasi hindi na po 9 years old. Baba. By virtue of Republic Act 9344 or the Juvenile Justice Welfare Act or the Juvenile Justice Welfare Code of the Philippines, itinaas na po ang edad ng exemption, okay, hindi na po 9. That will be 15 years old and below. So, pag 15 years old and below ka at nakapatay ka, you are exempted. Okay? That's why it's a dangerous law. 15 years old and below at nang rape ka, you are exempted. See? Kaya there are many times that they deliberate in Congress na gusto nilang ibaba or ibalik yung edad. Kasi sabi na 15 years old can play gun. 14 years old can kill. Okay? But human rights, mga ganyan, o kaya best interest of the child, mga ganon. So, a person under 9 years of age, this is paragraph number 2, lampasan na natin kasi i-introduce natin yung bagong batas. Sabi natin, under our discussion, if there is a special law and there is also a law from revised penal code, the special law will prevail. The revised penal code is just only serve as supplementary. Ayun, kaya ito, okay, susupplement na lang siya kung mayroong hindi nagawa yung batas na 9344. Yan. So, paragraph number 2 ito, pati yung paragraph number 3. Yung paragraph number 3 mo bago. Okay? So, 15 years old and below, absolute irresponsibility, wala ka pong pananagutan. Okay? Conditional responsibility, yan yung kung without discernment, no liability. Kung with discernment, above 15 and below 18. Okay? Above 15 and below 18, depende na yan. If you acted with discernment, that is, mayroon kang liability. If you acted without discernment, no liability. Discernment, okay, when there's discernment, mitigated. Okay, pag may discernment, mitigated, automatic. Tinatanong ito sa board exam, automatic pag ang bata nakagawa ng krimen, sabihin natin below 18, above 15, acted with discernment, mitigated siya ng 1 degree lower. 1 degree lower. Kaya hindi mo pwedeng i-undergo sa death penalty ang bata kasi kahit death penalty yan, mayroon siyang 1 degree lower. Yan. Mitigated responsibility between 18 and, yung yung sa may mitigated, yan yun nga, yung between 15 to 18 and also yung more than 70 or 70 and above. Mitigated sila, di ba? Commutation. Full responsibility naman, yung ito, between 18 to 70, yan, full responsibility. Over 70, that is mitigated responsibility. Okay, so yun. I repeat, 15 years and below, we have absolute irresponsibility. Okay? Between 15 and below 18, above 15 and below 18, mitigated responsibility. Between 18 and 30, full responsibility, and 70, full responsibility. Over 70 years old, mitigated responsibility rin. Okay, paragraph number 3. A person over 9 years of age and under 15, unless he acted with discernment, in which case such minor shall be proceeded against in accordance with the provision of Article 80 of this code. Okay, bilisan natin sa paragraph number 3 and number 2 and number 3. I will give you the new law. Okay, yan. Okay, Republic Act 9344, the Juvenile Justice Welfare Code, amended the age of criminal responsibility of a child. Ano ngayon? Okay, we have there the minimum age of criminal responsibility. Ito na yon, ito yung bago. A child 15 years of age or under at the time of the commission of the offense shall be exempt from criminal liability. Yan. However, the child shall be subjected to intervention program. Tandaan nyo ito ha. Ang bata hindi siya makukulong if he is 15 years and below. But under RA 9344, he will undergo intervention program to be conducted by the DSWD upon their different programs. Okay, a child above 15 but below 18 is also exempt from criminal liability. Above 15, below 18. Okay? If he acted without discernment. What is discernment? Discernment is the ability to determine what is right or the mental condition to determine what is right from what is wrong. Okay, so even 50, above 15, below 18 is exempted from criminal liability. Okay? If he acted without discernment. And again, subjected to intervention program. O yung tinatawag nating intervention at saka diversion. Yan. Unless, pero if he acted with discernment, magiging liable na siya. At yung liability niya na yon, kung ilan ang parusa, ay mababawasan ng isang 1 degree lower. Yan, 1 degree lower siya sa actual na penalty. Okay? So, the exemption from criminal liability here established does not include exemption from civil liability. Sir, sinong magbabayad? Yung magulang. Ang tawag natin doon ay imputed negligence. The parents is deemed civilly liable for the action or the injury incurred by his or her child. Yan. So next, we have, after the RA 9344, it changed already your paragraph number 3 and paragraph number 2 and number 3. So we can now proceed to paragraph number 4. Any person who, while performing a loophole act with due care, causes an injury by mere accident without fault or intention of causing it. So paragraph number 4 talks about accident. Pag aksidente ang nangyari, no criminal liability. At the same time, no civil liability. Okay? Yan. Any person who, while performing a loophole act with due care, cause an injury by mere accident without fault or intention of causing it. Okay? So, what's the basis? Kanina yung 2 and 3, lack of intelligence. Ito naman, lack of negligence and intent. A person is performing a loophole act, exercise of due care. He causes injury to another by mere accident without fault or intention of causing it. Yan. So, with that, you are exempted. O, yan. Limbawa, dumadaan ka. Okay, you are driving your car. Then, slow mo ka naman. Tapos, biglang may natumba sa harap mo. Then, yun. Tamaan ng sasakyan mo. Yun pala, may nakulaps. Madahan-dahan ka naman. So, yun. Nasaktan yung tao, pwede mong invoke yung accident. Okay? Or in a mountainous area na malakas ang ulan, there's a torrential rain, then pababa pa yung sasakyan mo, mabagal ka naman, tapos biglang may bata. Yun. You can prove that that can be an accident. A person is performing a loophole act, exercise of due care, you causes injury to another by mere accident, without fault or intention of causing it, pwede nating invoke yon, accident. Okay? Next, we have, what is accident? Accident happens outside the sway of our will, and although it comes about some act of our will, lies beyond the bounds of humanly foreseeable consequences. Okay, yan yung talagang hindi na natin makontrol. It lies beyond the bounds of humanly foreseeable consequence. It happens outside the sway of our will, and although it comes about some act of our will, it lies beyond the bounds of humanly foreseeable consequence. Yan. So, that is what you call accident. Next. Okay, next we have any person who act under the compulsion of an irresistible force. Yan. What's the basis of exempting due to irresistible force? We have there the complete absence of freedom. Okay, an element of voluntariness. Complete absence of freedom. Okay? You are just like a robot. Yan. Na dinidiktahan kung anong gustong ipagawa sa'yo. Bakit? Because of irresistible force. Elements that the compulsion is by means of physical force. Tandaan nyo if the means is by physical force, irresistible force. If the means is by threat or intimidation, that is uncontrollable fear. Yun ang pagkakaiba nila. Pag sinabi nating irresistible force, that is physical force. Pag sinabi nating uncontrollable fear, that is threat or intimidation. Okay? So that the compulsion is by means of physical force, that the physical force must be irresistible, that the physical force must come from a third person. So that is what you call irresistible force. It must be physical. Okay. So doon muna tayo sa irresistible force. Halimbawa, binugbog ka ng binugbog. Tapos sabing, sige, kung hindi mo sila iuhukay, yung mga katawan na yan, ng mga kasama mo, bugbugin ka pa namin. Yan, binugbog ka na naman, ayaw mo, sige, binugbog ka na naman. So hanggang hindi mo na makaya talaga at napilitan kang takpan sila sa hukay. So yun. Okay? Can you be an accessory because you conceal the body? The answer now is no, because there is irresistible force dahil sa ginagawa nila. Next, we have any person who act under the impulse of uncontrollable fear. Ito naman sinasabi ko kanina. Uncontrollable fear of an equal or greater injury Take note it must be equal or greater injury yung kinakatakutan mo. Okay? So, again, what's the basis of uncontrollable fear? Yes, you are just like a robot again. Because sa takot. So, complete absence of freedom. Elements that the threat which causes the fear is of an evil greater than or at least equal to that which he is required to commit. Yan. That it promises an evil of such gravity and imminence that the ordinary man would have succumbed to it. So, dito, sa uncontrollable fear, okay, sa irresistible force, kanina, that is physical force, due to physical force. Sa uncontrollable fear, it is due to what? It is due to threat and intimidation. So, halimbawa, nakatutok yung barel sa ulo mo, tapos binigyan ka ng barel. Then sabi nila, kung hindi mo siya papatayin, ikaw ang papatayin namin. So, which is more precious to you? Your life or his life? So, pinatay mo yung gustong papatay sa'yo. Are you liable for murder or homicide? The answer there is no, because there is uncontrollable fear. Kaya, pinapapatay sa'yo yung tao, nakatutok sa asawa mo or sa anak mo. Yung baril nila. Sabi nila, pag hindi mo papatayin, hindi mo kakalabitin ng gatilyo, itong magina mo ang papatayin namin. So, because of that, that is uncontrollable. Napatay mo yon, okay? You are not liable because of uncontrollable fear. Yan, yung uncontrollable fear natin. Pero, kasi, greater yung kapalit pag hindi mo ginawa. Greater yung kinakatakot mo kaysa yung pinapagawa sa'yo. Yan. Pero, hindi pwedeng invoke pag ang nangyari ay greater yung ginawa mo kaysa sa kinakatakutan mo. Nakapalit. Like for example, nakahawak sila ng torch. Okay? Yung may apoy. Tapos, tinabihan nila yung bahay kubo mo. Then they said, pag hindi mo siya papatayin, susunugin namin ang bahay kubo mo. Then pinatay mo yung tao. Do you think that is because of, do you think you can invoke uncontrollable fear? The answer there is no. Why? Because what you did is greater than what is the fear they create. Yung pagpatay, yung buhay, ay mas malalayon kaysa sa susunugin nila yung bahay kubo mo. So, hindi pwede ang invoke ang paragraph na ito yung uncontrollable fear. So, kailangan kasi equal or greater yung, okay, gagawin nila pag hindi mo ginawa. So, next, number 7, any person who fails to perform an act required by law when prevented by some lawful or insuperable cause. Yan. Any person who fails to perform an act required by law when prevented by some lawful or insuperable cause. So, yan. Lawful or insuperable cause. Okay? So, what is now the basis? Lack of intent. Yan. Hindi mo talaga intensyon na gawin yon. So, yan. Yan yung number 7. Elements that an act is required by law to be done that a person fails to perform such act. Yan. And that is failure to perform such act was due to some lawful or insuperable cause. Okay, I will give you example. Nahuli mo yung tao, sinundan mo siya for example sa El Nido. Caught in the act. Okay, nahuli mo siya. Even without warrant of arrest. Kasi nga, may ginagawa siya doon, caught in the act. Okay? Ngayon, under the law of warrantless arrest, kailangan ma-deliver natin yung tao within 12-18-36, observing the reglementary period of 12-18-36. Okay? There must be a delivery of person to proper authority or else, pag hindi mo na-deliver yon, okay, hindi na i-entertain yan. Kasi nga, pwedeng ikaw pang makasuhan na nanghuli ng delay in the delivery of person to proper authority. So, yun. So, kailangan mong ma-deliver yan. For example, 12, 18, or 36 hours, depending upon the crime he committed. But the problem there is, from El Nido to the central part of Palawan, ang tanging paraan para makapunta doon ay yung bangka, the boat. The problem there is, biglang may dumating na bagyo nung time na yon. So walang nagbiyaheng sasakyan, bangka. Okay, so you cannot deliver the person and file the proper charges. So 3 araw na maalon at saka bumabagyo. So, are you liable for not filing a criminal charge of the person? The answer there is no, because of loophole or insuperable cause. Okay, the typhoon can be a ground or can be a reason under insuperable cause. So that is number 7 in exempting circumstance. Okay, so same as or similar to exempting is the what you call absolutory cause, are those where the act committed is a crime, but for some reason of public policy and sentiment, there is no penalty imposed. So by reason of public policy or sentiment, there is no penalty imposed. Yan. By reason of public policy and sentiment, there is no penalty imposed. That is absolutory cause. Absolutory cause, in Tagalog, absuelto ka. So yan. Okay? Now, after this, Jimaa, isa-isain natin ano yung mga absolutory cause na yan. Yan. Ito. Sige na, ito na. Article 6, they are the spontaneous desistance. Okay? Under the attempted crime, di ba? Attempted felony. If you started the overt act, nasimulan mo na, but you did not fulfill all the acts or you did not execute all the acts of execution, at hindi mo nagawa because of your spontaneous desistance, bumawi ka, yung pagbawi mo na yon, absuelto ka na. That is Article 6. And that is what you call spontaneous desistance. Article 20, accessories exempt from criminal liability. Ano ba ang mga ginawa ng accessories? Again, you benefited from the commission of the crime. You conceal the person who committed the crime, or you conceal or destroy the evidence used in the commission of the crime. You are accessory. Pero, pag itinago mo yung gumawa ng krimen kasi asawa mo o kaya anak mo, you are accessory, but you are exempt from criminal liability. Because it is normal that by blood, kailangan mong protektahan ang relatives mo. Okay? Yan. So that's accessory. You are accessory, but you're exempt from criminal liability. Tinago mo yung mga ginamit niya sa paggawa ng krimen. So accessories, exempt from criminal liability yan. Article 20. Okay? Asawa, mga relatives, exempt. Accessories, if you are accessory, you are exempt from criminal liability. Okay? Next, we have profiting one's self in assisting offender to profit by the commission of the crime. So that is another. You profit from the commission of the crime. You are also exempted. Halimbawa, asawa mo yung gumawa ng krimen, binigyan kanya ng pera. Okay? So you will not be an accessory because you benefited from it. Okay? So you are absuelto. Article 19, paragraph 1, if you benefited from the crime committed by the offender or perpetrator, and you are a husband or a wife or a relatives, so you are still you can invoke absolutory cause. Instigation, is also an absolutory cause. Okay? Instigator practically induced the would-be accused into the commission of the offense and himself become co-principal. Yan. Accused will be acquitted. Ano yung instigation? Magkaiba ang instigation sa entrapment. Yan. Dapat alam mo yung pagkakaiba niyan kasi during that time, pwedeng mangyari either instigation or entrapment. Entrapment is the ways and means are resorted to for the purpose of trapping and capturing the lawbreaker in the execution of his criminal plan. So, sa entrapment, okay yan, legal. Pero yung instigation, absuelto yung taong hinuli mo. Yung entrapment talagang ginagawa niya yung krimen, kaya nyo siya hinuli. Yung instigation, kayo ang nagpagawa ng krimen, saka nyo siya hinuli. So, yun. Instigation yun. Yung entrapment, halimbawa, di ba? Alam nyo siya ay nagbibenta ng drugs. So, what you did is, nag-test buy kayo, nag-buy bust kayo. Then, yun nga, during the buy bust operation, nuli nyo siya. That is entrapment. Talagang he is doing his criminal act. While in instigation, ito naman ang nangyari. Pinabili mo siya ng pinagbabawal na droga. Okay? Di siya naman, gusto kanyang ma-impress, bumili naman siya. Pagbalik niya, nung ibigay niya sa yung pinabili mo, hinuli mo na siya. So, hindi po pwede yun. The person can invoke absolutory cause. Absuelto po siya because of instigation. He's not doing the crime, you induce him to make such action, then afterwards sinuli mo, therefore hindi pwede. That is an absolutory cause because of instigation. Okay, next, let's talk about mitigating circumstances. Okay? So, aside from this mitigating, marami pa tayong mga absolutory cause. Ano? Yan, absuelto yung tao. Kaya nung death under exceptional circumstances, absolutory cause yun. Yung asawa is, he committed or the spouse committed the crime of theft, malicious mischief, and estafa against the other spouse. Absuelto po yung asawa. Okay? Hindi pwedeng kasuhan ng asawa ng theft. Hindi pwedeng kasuhan yung asawa ng malicious mischief. At hindi rin pwedeng kasuhan ng asawa ng estafa. Yan. Kinuha niya yung perang itinago mo. Hindi mo siya pwedeng kasuhan. Absuelto siya doon. Okay? Malicious mischief. Umuwi kang lasing. Galit na galit ang misis mo. Ibinato niya yung flat screen TV, binato niya yung mga platito, yan, basag-basag lahat. Kasuhan mo yung asawa mo, no? Cannot file a case of malicious mischief. Or binasag niya yung mga paso, hindi yun malicious mischief. Yung estafa, sabi niya, utang, bayaran ko sa ganito, pero hindi niya nabayaran. Okay? So, hindi yun malicious mischief. Because of the property and conjugal relationship. Yan. But, ibang usapan pag robbery. So, yun. Lumalabas sa board exam yun. The spouse cannot file a case against other spouse for a crime committed except on what crime? O yun, isasabi lahat. A, theft. B, robbery. C, estafa. D, malicious mischief. So, ang sagot doon ay robbery. Hindi pwedeng kasuhan ng asawa yung asawa niya kung ang ginawa niya ay theft, malicious mischief, and estafa. Absolutory cause yun. Except robbery. Okay, now let's proceed with mitigating circumstance. Those circumstances which reduce the penalty of the crime. So, it reduces the penalty. Those circumstances which reduce the penalty of the crime. Effects. It reduces the penalty of the crime but does not erase criminal liability nor change the nature of the crime. Nabawasan lang po yung parusa pero yung krimen andun pa rin. Okay? Even the civil liability is there. So there are two types of mitigating. We have the privilege and the ordinary mitigating. The privilege mitigating cannot be offset by aggravating. Cannot be offset by aggravating. Ordinary can be offset by aggravating. Pag privilege ang present, hindi pwedeng ibawas sa mitigating. Hindi sila pwedeng mag-minus-minus. Pero pag ordinary, yun ang pwedeng ibawas. Kung may isang mitigating na ordinary at saka ang aggravating, wala yun. Quits yun. Pero pag may isang privilege, may isang aggravating, hindi mo pwedeng pagbawasin. You cannot offset privilege mitigating to an aggravating. Only ordinary mitigating can offset with the aggravating circumstance. Okay? Yan. So, ang pagbaba kasi ng privilege ay by degree. Okay? By degree ang pagbaba niya. Okay? Degree ang lowering niya. So, by degree ang pagbaba ng privilege. Pero, ang pagbaba ng ordinary ay by period. Yan na yung bababa siya from maximum, medium, and minimum. Yan ang pagbaba ng ordinary by period. Okay? Hindi gaya doon sa privilege by degree. Yan. If not offset, has the effect of imposing the penalty in the minimum period. Okay? Bumaba siya. Next, we have under the mitigating, ito yung mga yon. We have those mentioned in the preceding chapter when all the requisites necessary to justify or exempt the act, okay, from criminal liability is in the respective cases are not attendant. In other words, incomplete justifying and incomplete exempting circumstance. Sinabi na natin yung mga elements kanina sa justifying at elements ng exempting. Kung may kulang na elements, pasok siya sa, okay, number 1. And this is privilege mitigating. Privilege mitigating ito. Okay, this is a privilege mitigating circumstance. So, by degree. Pag isang element lang ang present, 1 degree lower. Pag dalawang elements ang present, 2 degrees lowered. Yon. Okay? Ang tawag dito ay incomplete justifying, incomplete exempting circumstance. Yan. So, incomplete self-defense, defense of relatives, defense of stranger, state of necessity, performance of duty, vigilance of lawful order, and battered woman syndrome. So, incomplete justifying. Incomplete exempting, yan yung mga minority, yan, uncontrollable fear, irresistible force, accident. So, pag incomplete, again, pwedeng ipasok ang paragraph number 1, incomplete justifying and mitigating circumstances. Incomplete justifying and incomplete exempting circumstances. That the offender is under 18 of age or over 15 years. In case of a minor, he shall proceed against in accordance with the Article 192 of 906, PD 903. Yan. So, with this, pag yung bata ay below 18, wala munang promulgation of judgment. Kailangan hintayin yung edad niyang maging 18 bago magkaroon ng promulgation of judgment. And if the person acted without discernment, exempted siya. Sabi natin ngayon na. Pero if he acted with discernment, 1 degree lower, yan ang sinasabi natin kanina. Na pag yung bata, alam niya ang kanyang ginagawa, and he is minor, and he is guilty, so privilege mitigating, 1 degree lowered siya. Okay, kung ang parusa niya ay reclusion perpetua, bababa ng isa, magiging reclusion temporal. Yon. Now, yung over 70 years old, yan naman sa correction. Sila yung mga kinu-commute. Yung tinatawag nating commutation. Commutation, yun. Yung commutation is the lowering or reduction of penalty because of their age. Okay? So, that is in number 2. Paragraph number 3, praeter intentionem, that the offender had no intention to commit so grave a wrong as that committed. Praeter intentionem, the offender had no intention to commit so grave a wrong than that committed. So, ang gusto mo lang mangyari is sampalin siya, pero actually, nabagok siya, namatay, yun. That's praeter intentionem. Okay? Ikaw pa rin ang cause. Gusto mong magpakamatay, tumalon ka sa taas. Hindi mo alam, nandun pa rin janitor sa baba, siya ang nadaganan mo. So, the intention is different. The act committed is different from what you intended. Okay, so can be used only when the facts prove to show that there is a notable and evident disproportion between means employed to execute the criminal act and its consequences. So intention as an internal act is judged by the proportion of the means employed to the evil produced by the act, and also by the fact that the blow was or was not aimed at the vital part of that is praeter intentionem. In praeter intentionem, that is a ordinary mitigating. Yung praeter intentionem natin, yung previous slide, it's an ordinary circumstance. So, one period. So, kung medium, magiging minimum yung period ng degree na yon. Next, number 4, that the sufficient provocation or threat on the part of the offended party immediately preceded the act. So, here, provocation or threat. Okay? So, ikaw na biktima ang nag-provoke, okay, pwedeng bumaba ang kanyang sentensya. So, what is provocation? Any unjust or improper conduct or act of the offended party. Yung biktima, mayroon siyang ginawa, improper conduct, capable of exciting, inciting, or irritating anyone. Kaya ka nagawan ng krimen. So, that is sufficient provocation or threat. Okay, so dahil ikaw ang nagsimula at naging biktima ka, ayun, mayroong bawas yung parusa nung nakagawa sa'yo. So, what's the basis? Diminution of intelligence and intent. Actually, the basis of mitigating is diminution of intelligence, intent, freedom, and negligence or imprudence. So yun, may kulang pero hindi siya complete diminution. Kulang konti. Yan. Provocation must be sufficient. Yan. So sufficiency, adequate enough to excite, irritate, or incite other person. Okay, so that is in times of provocation. Next, number 5, we have vindication, that the act committed in immediate vindication, okay, of a grave offense to one committing the felony is his spouse, ascendants, descendants, legitimate, natural, or adopted brother or sister or relatives by affinity within the same degree. Vindication, ibig sabihin, bindita. Okay? Vindication, there is a grave offense done to one committing the felony, that the felony is committed in vindication of such grave offense. Lapse of time is allowed between vindication and the one doing the offense. Yan. And, okay, so yun. And it must be against your spouse, ascendants, descendant, legitimate, natural, adopted brother and sisters, or relatives by affinity within the same degree. Within the same degree. Now, ganito yun. Sa provocation, kailangan immediate. Walang walang time lapse. Walang lapse of time. Kasi pag nagkaroon ng lapse of time at may nangyari, pre-novoke ka, halimbawa, sinuntok ka, after ilang oras, o kaya after ilang araw, saka mo rin siya sinuntok. Hindi na po yun provocation. Vindication ng nangyari. Provocation, immediate. After nun, pag binugbog ka, binugbog mo rin. That's provocation. But if there is a lapse of time, that's vindication. Yun ang pagkakaiba nila. Another na pagkakaiba nila, sa provocation, kailangan ikaw ang sinaktan. At ikaw lang din ang nandoon at ikaw ang sinaktan, that is provocation. Sa vindication, kahit hindi ikaw ang sinaktan, pwedeng ikaw, pwedeng yung relatives mo. Spouse, ascendant, descendants, legitimate, natural, or adopted brother or sister. Or relatives by affinity within the same degree. Sila ang sinaktan. Pwede. So yun ang pagkakaiba nila. Sa provocation, kailangan ikaw ang sinaktan. Sa vindication, kahit yung relatives mong sinaktan, kahit hindi ikaw, pwede kang mag-vindicate. Yan. Vendetta, bawi, resback. Yun. So yun yung paragraph number 1. Okay, so provocation made directly only to the person committing the felony. Cause that brought about the provocation need not be a grave offense. Pero sa vindication, kailangan grave offense. Necessary that provocation or threat immediately preceded the act. No time interval. Kasi pag nagkaroon ng time interval, hindi na yung provocation, yun na ay vindication. Okay? So, grave offense against the offender or your relatives. Ayun. Kanina, dapat directly only to you. Yan. Offended must have done a grave. So, kailangan grave offense. Kanina, need not a grave offense. It must be proximate. Okay? Time interval allowed. Okay? Ito naman, it must be immediate. No time interval allowed. Yan naman ang provocation. So, that's the difference between provocation and vindication. In provocation, sa'yo lang. Ginawa yon. Sa'yo nag-provoke. In vindication, kahit sa'yo or sa relatives mo. Okay? Sa provocation, need not be a grave offense. Sa vindication, kailangan grave offense. Okay? Sa provocation, kailangan no time interval. Sa vindication, time interval allowed. Okay? So, another that having acted upon impulse so powerful as to produce passion or obfuscation. Yun. Okay? Because of fit of anger. Yan. Passion or obfuscation. Because of outbursts of anger. Nabigla ka. Nung nakita mo, passion or obfuscation. Yan. Nakita mo, yung girlfriend mo, may kahawak ang kamay, kahalikan, si best friend mo, no, nilapitan mo, pinagbubugbog mo si best friend mo. Because of zealous. That is what you call passion or obfuscation. Okay? Common ito sa love crimes. Okay? Yan. Passion or obfuscation is mitigating. So, yung provocation, ordinary mitigating din yon. Vindication, ordinary mitigating din yon. Ha? So, ganun yon. So, we have the passion and obfuscation, ordinary mitigating din ito. Yan. When there are causes naturally producing a person's powerful excitement where he loses his reason and self-control. Ayun. Di mo na control ang sarili mo. Sabi nga natin, because of bursts of anger. Yan. Passion and obfuscation are mitigating. Only when the same arise from loophole sentiment. When not done in the spirit of revenge or lawlessness. Hindi yung sobra naman ang ginawa mo. Because of zealous, tinadtad mo, kinapchap mo, hindi pwede yon. Hindi pwedeng passion obfuscation. Nilagay mo sa drum na may semento, hindi rin pwede. Okay? Hindi applicable ang passion and obfuscation in the spirit of revenge or lawlessness. No passion or obfuscation there. Okay? The offender acted on impulse powerful enough to produce passion or obfuscation. That the act was committed not in the spirit of lawlessness or revenge. That act must come from lawful sentiments. So that is passion and obfuscation. Passion and obfuscation. Okay? That there be an act both unlawful and unjust. That act be sufficient to produce a condition of the mind. That the act was proximate to the criminal act. The victim must be the one who caused the passion or obfuscation. Yan, ang passion and obfuscation. Okay? Next, we have pag present ang passion at present din ang obfuscation, isa lang ang counting nila. Tandaan yon. Okay? Next, number 7, voluntary surrender. Yan, we have voluntary surrender. That the offender had voluntarily surrendered himself to a person in authority or his agent. That he had voluntarily confessed his guilt before the court prior to the presentation of the evidence for the prosecution. So, voluntary surrender. And, dalawa dito sa number 7, voluntary surrender and confession of guilt or plea of guilty. Yan. So, two mitigating circumstances present, voluntary surrender, voluntary confession of guilt or plea of guilty. If both are present, consider as two independent mitigating circumstances. If both are present, consider as two independent mitigating circumstances. Requisites of voluntary surrender, offender not actually arrested, offender surrender to a person in authority or the latter's agent, surrender was voluntary. Okay, surrender must be spontaneous. Show his interest to surrender unconditionally to the authorities. Hindi yung parating na yung mga pulis para huliin siya saka siya nag-surrender. Hindi yun pwede. Dapat ikaw yung kusang papunta doon at magsusurrender. That is voluntary surrender. Okay, yan. Next, we have yung plea of guilt naman kanina, o pag nag-plea ka ng guilty, may bawas. Yan, mitigating din yon. Next, the offender is deaf and dumb. Deaf, dumb, blind, or suffering from physical defects. Yan, physical defects which those restrict his means of action, defense of communication with his fellow being. Yan. Why? One suffering from physical defects which restrict him does not have complete freedom of action and therefore there is diminution of elements of voluntariness. So, mitigating ang blind. Halimbawa, yung blind, mayroong nabangga, may nasira na gamit. Ayun, that can be a mitigating. Okay? Yan. Yung dumb or deaf, okay? May sinasabi ka, bigla ka niyang sinuntok kasi ang akala niya, iba yung sinasabi mo, yan. So, D can be, or yung mga hindi makapagsalita, so these physical defects can be a ground for mitigating. Yan. Next, we have number 9, illness of the offender. Kung may sakit yung tao, as would diminish the exercise of the willpower of the offender without depriving him of consciousness of his act. Like, andito na pumapasok yung mga mayroong malignant malaria, yung mga natipos, ano pa, yung pregnant woman, okay, na bigla na lang nahilo. Yan, so illness of the offender. Tapos may nangyari. So, because of this illness, diminish the exercise of the willpower of the offender. Actually, dito rin pumapasok, sabi nila, yung mga kleptomania o kaya yung mga epilepsy. So, these are illness of the offender. Next, The number 10, any other circumstances of a similar nature and analogous to those above. Ito yung tinatawag nating this is what you call extenuating circumstances. Extenuating circumstances, those who are enumerated by law but not enumerated in this chapter, sila na yung mga analogous circumstances of a similar nature. Yan. Okay? 60 years old with failing eyesight, over 70 years old, kaya yung mga 70 years old in terms of commutation. Okay? Outraged feeling of owner of the animals taken for ransom. Yan. Jealous feeling. So ito, analogous circumstances. Okay? Next, we have after meeting, we have there the aggravating circumstances. So what about aggravating circumstances? The aggravating circumstances increase or raise the penalty for a crime without exceeding the maximum applicable to the crime. So kahit ilang aggravating circumstances, okay, kung yan ay present, hanggang sa maximum lang ang pwede niyang ilagay. Hindi siya pwedeng mag-jump sa other degree. So, always yan. Pag yan ay aggravating, maximum penalty. Okay? So, yan. So, ito yung pinakamaraming circumstances aggravating. Basis, greater perversity of the offense. Sobrang ginawa mo. Yan. Greater perversity of the offense. Dahil sobrang ginawa mong pamamaraan, yan, yung epekto ay sobra, so that will be aggravated. Okay? Aggravating circumstances. Basis, greater perversity of the offense. Okay? Yan. So, again, ano yung basis ng justifying natin kanina? The person does not transgress the law because his act is in accordance with the law. Ano naman yung exempting? Complete absence of freedom, intelligence, and intent. Complete. Ano naman yung mitigating? Diminution of freedom, intelligence, and intent. Yan. Ano naman yung aggravating? There is a greater perversity of the offense. Yan. Okay? So, the motivating power before the act, ito yung mga rason or tinitignan. The motivating power behind the act. Okay? Then, the place where the act was committed. Kung nangyari yan sa Malacanang or nangyari yan sa loob ng simbahan. Ganon. Okay? Then, the means and ways used. Pinasabog mo, yan. And others. The time, kung ginawa yan ng gabi, just to facilitate their concealment of their identity. And the personal circumstance of the offender. Ang binugbog mo matanda na babae. Ang binugbog mo bata, minor. So this can be aggravating. The personal circumstances of the victim. Ay, ito yun. The personal circumstances of the victim. Yung personal circumstances of the offender naman. Yan. Halimbawa is itinali mo yung biktima samantalang ikaw nandoon, siyang kang bumubugbog o kaya mayroon kang kasama. Yan, personal circumstances of the offender naman yan. So, there are 4 kinds of aggravating. The generic. We have also there the generic. So, ito yung mga generic that can be applied to all crimes. Kaya nga generic, di ba? Pwedeng ipasok sa lahat ng kaso kung present yan. Like dwelling, nighttime, recidivism. So, yan ang generic. Those that can generally apply to all crimes. Okay? Generic or ordinary ang tawag yan. Generic or ordinary aggravating circumstance. Next, we have specific. Kung ang generic can be applicable to all crimes, specific is only applicable to a particular crimes. Okay? So, hindi yan pwede sa lahat. Sa ilang kaso lang. Apply only to a particular crimes. That is specific. So, number 1 is generic. Number 3 is qualifying. Those that change the nature of the crime. Okay? Those that change the nature of the crime. Okay? So, we have there the generic, specific, qualifying. So, in qualifying, it will elevate the crime or it will catapult the crime into the higher. So, instead of homicide, if this aggravating is present, it will catapult the crime into murder. Yan. Okay? Pinatay mo siya. Tapos, sinaksak mo siya patalikod. Imbis na homicide sana, ang nangyari, magiging murder. So, that is qualifying circumstance because of the what you call alibosya or treachery, stab from behind. Okay? These are qualifying. Yan. Okay? Nilason mo siya. Nilasing mo siya bago mo patayin. That's qualifying. Okay? It will elevate the crime. Pinatay mo siya gamit ang pampasabog. That is qualifying. It will catapult or it will elevate the crime. It will change the nature of the crime. Kaya nga siya tinatawag na qualifying. Okay? Next, the last one is inherent. They are part of the elements of the crime. Those that must, of necessity, accompany the commission of the crime. In other words, they are part of the elements. They are part of the elements of the crime. Like, for example, dwelling, in times of robbery, in times of brigandage, dwelling is inherent. Yan. Ano pa? Yung minor, in case of infanticide, di ba? Bata yung namamatay, less than 3 days old. Also yun. Inherent, yung elements doon. So, yan. That is, for example, fire in case of arson. So, yung kaso, that is yung circumstance, yung present na yun, yung condition na yun, are inherent to the commission of the crime. So, once na qualifying, nagamit mo na yan for qualifying, hindi na po siya pwedeng gamitin for para itaas sa maximum. Pag ginamit mo na rin yan na inherent, part yan ng elements, hindi na po pwede para dagdagan ang parusa. Okay? And take note, under criminal procedure, inherent, aggravating and mitigating must be. Okay? Aggravating and mitigating must be. Okay? Must be reflected or must be indicated in your complaint. Okay? Or information. So that it must be counted or recognized, or else they will be waived. Okay? So, what are those aggravating circumstances? Number 1, that advantage be taken by the offender of his public position. If you are a government employee and you take advantage of your position, then that is aggravating circumstances. Yan, taking advantage of your public position. That you are a public officer, that the commission of the crime would not have been possible without the power, resources, and influence of the office you hold. O nagsilbi kang kudler. Okay? Cuddler. Yan. Yun, nagsilbi kang cuddler. Yan, yung parang ikaw yung binibaby mo sila, nagbaback up sa kanila, you pampered them, yan. That's, o kaya you serve as financier. So yun, aggravating circumstance. The advantage be taken by the offender of his public position. Okay? Yan. Next, we have So, the crime committed in contempt or insult with public authorities. Okay, contempt or insult to public authorities. Ongoing ang hearing, binato mo ng sapatos yung judge. That can be contempt or insult to public authorities. Di ba? Nagsasalita yung congressman o kaya yung senador, bigla kang ng bato during that speech, that can be contempt or insult to public authorities. Okay? Kaya nagsasalita yung pangulo during sa SONA, pinagbabato mo. Yan. Contempt or insult to public authorities. That the offender knows a public authority is present, that the public authority is engaged in the exercise of his function. Yan. That the public authority is not the victim of the crime. Okay? So here, I will give you another example. Nandun sa harap nyo si Mayor, and nag-away kayo kahit alam nyong nasa harap nyo. Pinigipigilan na kayo. You must know that the person is the person in authority. Pinipigilan, inaawat niya kayo, nag-struggle pa rin kayo. So because of that, mayroon kayong aggravating na contempt or insult to the public authority. Kailangan hindi kasali sa laban si Mayor, ha? Kasi pag kasali sa laban, hindi pwede ito. Okay? Andoon lang siya dapat. He is present there. He is not the victim of the crime. He is just there to engage the exercise of his function, pero hindi nyo siya pinakinggan. Tumuloy pa rin kayo sa laban ninyo. That is contempt or insult to public authority. Okay? Yan. Like governor, mayor, barangay captain, councilors, government agent, chief of police. Okay? That the act be committed with insult or in disregard of respect due to offended party on account of its rank, age, and sex. So here, may tatlo dito, yung rank, age, at saka sex. So, the act committed with insult or disregard of the respect due to offended party's rank, age, and sex. Yan. So, yung biktima mo, halimbawa yung boss mo, yung sinampal mo yung boss mo, yun. So, disregard of rank. Yan, yung age. Binugbog mo, 70 years old. Kawawa naman, ano? So, that can be an aggravating. Yan. Binoxing mo, babae. Yan, so that can be aggravating. Sex. Okay? So, that it be committed in the dwelling of the offended party if the latter has not given provocation. Ginawa mo yung krimen doon mismo sa bahay niya. Yan. So, dwelling is an aggravating circumstance. But in paragraph number 1, the rank, age, sex may be taken in account only in crimes against person or honor. Yan. So, halimbawa, ang nagawan mo ng, yun nga, yung binugbog mo is yung boss mo, yung matanda, 70 years old, above, or yung babae, sila, yun ang mga binugbog mo, yan yung pwedeng aggravating. Yung naman, honor, you make libelous remarks against your boss, yan, that can be an insult or disregard of respect. Okay? So, yun yung it can only apply in crimes against person or honor, okay? But you cannot invoke in a crime against property, Yan. So, rank refers to a highest social position or standing by which to determine one's pay and emoluments in any scale of comparison within a position. Yan. The age, the circumstance of lack of respect due to age applies in case where the victim is of tender age as well as of old age. Yan. Limbawa, ginawa mo ang krimen, yung lolo mo, yung lola mo, mga ganyan. Okay? So, this can be. Sex refers to the female sex, not to the male sex. Okay? Yan. Except if the condition is indispensable in the commission of the crime. Halimbawa, in a crime of rape, o di ba, babae na, o kaya, so yun, pwede, indispensable siya doon. Although pwede rin ma-rape ang lalaki. Yan, under our new law, RA 8353. Next, number 4, that the act be committed with, wait. Before that is, before paragraph number 4, discuss muna natin yung second paragraph doon, or the second sentence, the dwelling of the person committed in the dwelling. The crime was committed in the dwelling. Okay? So, kahit dun sa may hagdan, that's already part of the dwelling. Even that is a boarding house, kung doon nakatira yung tao, that's already part of a dwelling. Yan. Okay? So, kahit nakikitulog lang siya sa bahay ng kapatid niya, kung doon siya nakatira, that's a dwelling. Okay? Ito ang tandaan natin sa dwelling under sentence number 2, as aggravating. If all the ingredients, if any of the ingredients of the crime, took place in the dwelling or happens on the dwelling now is considered as aggravating. Kahit nasa labas ka, kung ang binaril mo ay yung nasa loob ng bahay niya, aggravating ang dwelling. Okay? Pwedeng maging grounds yun to aggravate the crime you committed. Kahit pinatay nyo siya sa labas, kung ang unang nangyari ay kinuha nyo siya sa loob ng bahay niya, dwelling is still aggravating. Okay? Kung nanggaling sa labas tapos tumakbo sa bahay niya, hinabol nyo pa rin. At paglabas ng bahay niya, doon nyo sila namatay, that's still a dwelling. Dwelling is still aggravating rather. So that is when it comes to dwelling. Any of the ingredients of the crime happen inside the dwelling, doon man nangyari, doon siya namatay, or tumakbo siya doon, o kaya, okay, kinuha niyo siya pero sa labas siya namatay, still, dwelling is aggravating. Next, abuse of confidence or obvious ungratefulness. Okay, inabuso mo yung kanyang tiwala. Or, obvious ungratefulness, ibig sabihin, wala kang utang na loob. Ganun yun. Ginawan mo pa sila ng krimen. So, in the abuse of confidence, offended party has trusted the offender. Offender abused such trust. Abuse of confidence facilitate the commission of the crime. Pinagkatiwala sa iyo yung bata, tapos tinakbo mo. Abuse of confidence. That can be aggravating. A girlfriend or a boyfriend, niyaya mo yung babae. Okay? With that trust, pinagsamantalan mo siya kahit ayaw niya o kaya may ginawa kang masama sa kanya. That is abuse of confidence. Okay? While in obvious ungratefulness must be obvious. That is, there must be something which the offender should own to the victim, a debt of gratitude. Pero, despite the good deeds they've done to you, ang ginawa mo, ginawa mo pa sila ng masama. Like for example, isang gabi, nag-ask ka ng tulong kasi wala kang matutuluyan. Kasi malakas ang ulan. Kaya ikay nasiraan ng sasakyan. Malayo pa ang iyong pupuntahan. But what you did is, pinagnakawan mo pa sila. Then umalis ka. That is obvious ungratefulness. Aggravating. Yan. We have that the crime be committed in the place of chief executive. Yan, sa palasyo ng Malacanang nangyari. Okay, the palace of the chief executive. Yan. In his presence or when public authorities are engaged in the discharge of their duty or in place dedicated for religious worship. Yan. Place, a palace of chief executive. Nangyari yun sa Malacanang, that is aggravating. Okay? Nang bugbog ka ng opisyal doon sa Malacanang. or place dedicated to religious worship. Binugbog mo yung pare habang nagsisermon. O kaya nag-away kayo sa loob ng simbahan ng ibang tao. Okay? Limbawa, kagalit nyo, tapos doon kayo nag-away, that is still aggravating. Why? You committed the crime on the religious place of worship, on the place of religious worship. O nag-away kayo sa harap ng Pangulo, sa loob ng Malacanang. Ayan. Aggravating. Palace of the Chief Executive. Okay? Next, we have, limbawa, nag-away din kayo sa polling precinct during election day. Yun. Kaya in the police station, yan, these are other places where they discharge their duties. Sige, Malacanang, church, mga ganon. Okay. Next, that the crime committed in the night time in an inhabited place or by a band, whenever such circumstance may facilitate the commission of the offense. So, nighttime can be aggravating, an inhabited place, and by a band. So, nighttime, an inhabited place, when it facilitates the commission of the crime, ginamit nyo yun para magawa nyo yung krimen, that can be aggravating. Okay, so yung nighttime, ginamit nyo yun to ensure the commission of the crime or for the purpose of impunity para hindi kayo makilala. So that can be, nighttime can be an aggravating circumstance. Impunity, ginamit nyo yun for impunity, sabi nga natin, means to prevent the accused being recognized or to secure himself against detection or punishment. So nighttime can be aggravating. Okay? So, yan. That is nighttime. So, the other term for nighttime is nocturnity. Yeah. The other term for nighttime is nocturnity. What do you mean by nocturnity? Nighttime. Yan. Okay, so paano masabing nighttime? 6 o'clock AM to 6 o'clock PM? 6 o'clock PM to 6 o'clock AM. Hindi po ganun yun. Okay? So, at the end of the dusk and ending at dawn. In other words, begins at the end of dusk and ending of dawn. Meaning to say, from sunset to sunrise. So, there is no definite time. Okay? Basta ang maliwanag, pag sinabi nating nighttime, yan na yung nagdilim. Mula takip silim hanggang bukang liwayway. Ganun yun. From sunset to sunrise. Yan. So, that is nighttime. Okay? Pero, kung yung place ay illuminated by light, kahit gabing-gabi yan, nighttime is not aggravating if it is illuminated by light. Okay? So, what about an inhabited place? Yung malayo ang mga bahay-bahayan. Ayun. Malayo ang mga kabahayan. Yun. One where there is no houses at all. Sir, gaano kalayo? We cannot tell definite distance. What important there is, when a person shout for help, no one can hear it. Yan. One where there is no house, where there are no houses at all. A place at a considerable distance from town, where the houses are scattered at a great distance from each other. That is an inhabited place. Sir, paano pag nilagay sa bangka, tapos doon sa gitna ng ilaw? Is that an inhabited place? Yes. That is an inhabited place. Okay? So the place facilitated the commission of the crime. Deliberately sought and not incidental to the commission or omission. Taken advantage for the purpose of impunity. That is an inhabited place. So, una, nighttime, now, an inhabited place. Okay? Next, we have, whenever more than 3 armed malefactors shall have acted together in the commission of an offense, it shall be deemed to be committed by band Ito naman yung ban. Tandaan nyo, more than 3 male factor, armed male factor. Halimbawa, nag-hold up sila, more than 3, that is a ban. Okay? Sindikato, then what they did, mayroon silang ginawa, that's a ban. More than 3. Kaya nga lumabas sa board, simple lang ang lumabas. Okay? Pero may mga hindi pa rin nakakuha. Sabi niya, okay, to consider a band, what's the minimum number? A, 3, B, 4, C, 5, D, 6. Yung mga iba sinasagot 3. Mali. A band is a minimum number of 4. So the answer is letter B, 4. Why? Sabi niya dito, whenever more than 3. Yung mga iba kasi, nakita lang yung number 3, yun na, pero nakalagay doon, more than 3. So that's 4. Shall have acted together in the commission of the offense. They committed robbery, they are more than 3, they are banned. Sir, paano pag hindi more than 3? Oo nga, no? Paano pag 3? Okay? Hindi na po yun banned. Aggravating pa rin. Pero ang tawag na natin, aid of armed men. Aid of armed men. Yon. Pag 3 pababa, aid of armed men. Pag more than 3, ban. Okay? Requisites, facilitate the commission of the crime, deliberately so, taking advantage for the purpose of impunity. There must be 4 or more than armed men. Yan. So yun, band is inherent in robbery and brigandage. Okay? Next, we have that the crime be committed on the occasion or of a conflagration, shipwreck, earthquake, epidemic, or other calamity, typhoon, pandemic, ayan, nasama-sama na yan. That crime be committed on the occasion of a conflagration, shipwreck, earthquake, epidemic, and other calamity or misfortune. Yan. Okay? Nasunugan na nga, ninakawan nyo pa. Yun. That's an aggravating circumstance. Lumubog na nga yung barko, kinuha nyo pa yung mga laman. Yan. Or during earthquake. Di ba? Lumilindol na nga, nang-re-rape ka pa. So that can be an aggravating. Epidemic, kawawa na yung mga tao. May epidemic na nga, you committed pa crime. That is still aggravating. An other calamity. Like for example, in Tacloban during the time of Yolanda. Yan. And others, even this present time of pandemic. Yan. That can still be, lalo yung mga overpricing. Yan. That can still be an aggravating circumstance. Committed when there is a calamity or misfortune. Yan. Offender took advantage of the state of confusion or chaotic condition from such misfortune. Confession or state of confusion or chaotic condition from such misfortune. Yan. Basis, commission of the crime adds for suffering by taking advantage of the misfortune. Ayan, walang awa, kaya nga greater perversity, ano? They are experiencing misfortune, yet you are committing a crime. So unfortunate. Next, we have that the crime committed with the aid of armed men or person who ensure or afford impunity. So paano yung armed men? Yan, matapang ka kasi nandun yung mga tao sa likod mo, yung mga kasama mo na mayroong armas, kaya binugbog mo yung tao, hindi makalaban. Ayun. That is aid of armed men. Kaya yun nga, yung hindi umabot ng 4, they will fall under this aid of armed men. Person who ensure and afford impunity. Okay? That armed man or person took part in the commission of the crime directly or indirectly. that the accused availed himself of their aid or relied upon them when the crime was committed. Okay, so yan, exemption when both the attacking party and the party attacked were equally armed. Yan lang, pagparas kayong may armas. Not present when the accused as well as those who cooperated with him in the commission of the crime acted under the same plan and for the same purpose. Okay, so that is aid of. With the aid of armed men, present even if one of the offender merely relied on their aid. Actual aid is not necessary. Kaya nga directly or indirectly, ano? Basta nandun lang sila. Siyempre, matatakot pag nandami ninyo, isa niya. Di ba? That can be an aid of armed men. Lalo may armas yung mga taong kasama mo. By a bond, okay, more than 3. Kaya nga pag hindi umabot ng 3, papasok siya sa armed men. If there are more than 3 armed men, aid of armed men is absorbed in the employment of. The accused is recidivist. Okay, we already discussed what is recidivist. One at the time of this trial for a crime shall have been previously convicted by final judgment or another crime embraced in the same title of the revised penal code. Okay, nakulong ka sa loob ng kulungan. Okay, nung nakulong ka, you are convicted for the crime of homicide. Sa loob ng kulungan, you committed again a crime of murder or a crime of physical injury. So this crime, itong mga krimen na ito, yung pangalawang krimen mo, nag-fall siya sa the same title. And that is a crime against person. So because of that, you are considered recidivist. O naulit, homicide ulit, o recidivist ka. Okay? Pero kailangan, you are convicted. Okay? One at the time of his trial for one crime shall have been previously convicted by final judgment of another crime. Again, greater perversity of the offender, as shown by his inclination to commit crime. Offender is on trial of an offense. He has previously convicted by final judgment of another crime. Usually, ito, nandun ka pa sa loob ng kulungan. On both, the first and the second offense embrace the same title. The offender is convicted of a new offense. Okay? What is controlling is the time of trial, not the time of the commission of the offense. At the time of the trial means that the arraignment until after sentence announced by the judgment in open court. Yan. So, kailan nagiging final ang judgment? After the lapse of period of perfecting the appeal, 15 days, okay? After 15 days, 15 days after the promulgation of judgment, okay, when the sentence have been partially or totally satisfied, and the defendant has already waived in writing his right to appeal, and the accused applied for provision. So once na meron ng mga to, the judgment become final. That the offender has been previously punished for an offense to which the law attached an equal or greater penalty, or for 2 or more crimes to which it attaches a lighter penalty. Yan. Paano naman to? This is what you call reiteration. Okay? Reiteration. You previously serve your sentence. Dito, na-serve mo na. Hindi gaya kanina na you are convicted and still you are serving. But now you already serve. Paglaya mo, nakagawa ka ulit ng krimen. Kaya anong nagawa mong krimen? Parusa naman ang tinitignan dito. Hindi gaya sa recidivist ang tinitignan kung parehas sa title. Ito, kung yung parusa, parehas ba kabigat sa una? O pwede, recidivism, reiteration. Mas mabigat ba kaysa sa una? Reiteration. Or mas mababa ba kaysa sa una pero dalawa naman ang kaso kahit mas mababa sa una pero dalawa, that is now reiteration or habituality. So yun. It doesn't necessary na nag-fall sila sa the same title. Ang tinitignan dito ay yung parusa. At ang tinitignan dito, kailangan na-serve mo na yung sentence. Sa recidivist, you just convicted, you are not yet, you are still serving your sentence, plus you committed a crime, ongoing yung trial sa pangalawa, kung saan yung pangalawa na yan, the embrace in the same title. Okay? So that's reiteration, recidivism. This is necessary that offender shall observe, while in recidivism, enough that final judgment has been rendered in the first offense. Yan. In recidivism, kailangan same title. In reiteration, okay, must not embrace and subsequent offense must not be embraced in the same title of the code. Okay? Next, we have yung 4 forms of repetition, recidivism, reiteration, habitual delinquent, and quasi-recidivism. Habitual delinquent, extraordinary aggravating, quasi-recidivism, special aggravating. We already discussed the difference of the four. The recidivism, reiteration, habitual delinquency, and quasi-recidivism. Okay, ito naman yung habitual delinquency, yung within 10 years sa Grand Slam ka, 3 kaso sa loob ng 10 taon of the pretzel, yung pretzel, falsification, robbery, stapa, theft, serious physical injury, less serious physical injury. You are found guilty of a said crime a third time or oftener. Quasi-recidivism, parang recidivism. Kaso nga lang, you are convicted of final judgment while before beginning to serve sa sentence or serving the same, you committed a crime which do not fall in the same title. Yung recidivism, nag-fall sa the same title. Quasi-recidivism, hindi nag-fall. So that is quasi-recidivism. So we have recidivism, reiteration, quasi-recidivism, and habitual delinquency. That the crime be committed in consideration of price, reward, or promise. Okay, may bayad. Pinagawa mo yung krimen, nagbayad ka, o kaya may promise. Hindi necessaryong cash, pwedeng promise or reward. Okay, at least 2 principals, principal by inducement, principal by direct participation. Yung gumawa, direct participation, yung nagbigay ng price, reward, or promise, inducement. Okay? So, it must be in relation to the crime committed, yung mga price, reward, and promise na yan. Applicable to both principles. Okay, next, we have that the crime be committed by means of inundation, fire, poison, explosion, stranding a vessel, or intentional damage thereto, or derailment of locomotives, or by use of any other artifice involving great waste or ruin. So yan, by means of inundation, fire, poison, explosion, stranding a vessel, or intentional damage, derailment of locomotives. Okay, sinunog mo, nilason mo, pinasabog mo, yan, nilunod mo. Okay, or stranding in a vessel. Yan, derailment of a locomotives or by use of any artifice involving great waste or ruin. Okay? So, in order to accomplish your purpose, criminal purpose, so this can be aggravated. Another, that the act be committed with evident premeditation. Simply pinagplanuhan mo. Evident premeditation, the execution of criminal act must be presided by cool thought and reflection upon the resolution to carry out the criminal intent during the space of time sufficient to arrive at a calm judgment. So, it takes time, may step by step kang ginagawa, pinagpaplanuhan mo, yan. Ang tawag doon ay evident premeditation. The time when the offender determined to commit the crime, and the act manifests indicating that the culprit has clung to his determination, a sufficient lapse of time between the determination and execution to allow him to reflect upon the consequence of his act and to allow his conscience to overcome the resolution of his will. Yan, that is evident premeditation. Pinagplanuhan mo. Next, craft, fraud, disguise. You use craft, fraud, or disguise. Craft involves intellectual trickery and cunning on the part of the accused. Sabi na 1, 2, 3 ako doon na. Yan. That's craft. Ginamitan mo ng intellectual trickery. Okay? Kinompute mo, naniwala naman, yun. Naging biktima na siya. That's craft. So next we have kaya the use of a chocolate containing drugs. So that there is a craft. So intellectual trickery. Next we have the fraud. Involves insidious word or machination used to induce victim to act in a manner which would enable the offender to carry out his design. Okay, we have insidious word. Ang ganda ng mga sinabi mo, pero yun pala, wala naman. Like in the case of estafa. Yan. Mga pyramiding scam. So that is fraud. Next, we have disguise. Yon. You change your identity. Okay? Resorting to any device to conceal identity, that's disguise. Craft involves intellect. Ayun nga, craft, fraud, and disguise. Next, we have advantage be taken of superior strength, means be employed to weaken the defense. Yan. So, you take advantage to gain superior strength. Itinali mo siya bago mo siya binugbog. Yan, nilasing mo siya bago mo gawin yung krimen. So, that is advantage be taken of superior strength or means to be employed to weaken the defense. Okay? To purposely use excessive force out of proportion to the means of defense available to the person attacked. Yan. So, that is advantage taken of superior strength or means to be employed to weaken the defense. Another is the act be committed with treachery or alevosía. Yun nga, yung parang pananaydor. When the offender commits any of the crime against person, employing means, methods, or form in execution thereof, which tend directly and especially to ensure its execution without risk to himself arising from the defense which the offended party might make. So that's treachery or alevosía. Stab from behind. Sinaksak mo patalikod. Treachery yon. At the time of the attack, the victim has not in the position to defend himself. That the offender consciously adopted the particular means, method, or form of attack employed by him. Yan. So that is treachery. So, stab from behind or the person had no position to defend himself. For example, is in assassination, mga ganyan. Okay? Next, that the means employed or circumstance brought about which add ignominy to the natural effect of the acts. So, ignominy is a circumstance to the moral order which add disgrace and obloquy to the material injury caused by the crime. So, yun yung ignominy. Ang dami-dami, ano? Ang hirap pang i-pronounce, obloquy. Disgrace. Pero yun lang, para hindi ka na mawala. Disgrace and obloquy are the same. Pero in ignominy, yan yung it hurts, you know. Yun. Why it hurts, you know? Masakit sa damdamin. Halimbawa, ginawa mo yung krimen sa harap ng mahal niya sa buhay. Di ba? Halimbawa, this is an example of ignominy. nirape mo yung babae sa harap ng magulang niya or sa harap ng asawa niya, that's ignominy. Di ba? It hurts, you know? So, yun ang huwag mong kalimutan para makita mo yung word na ignominy. Yan. Pag emotional or that is sometimes masakit sa damdamin, that's ignominy. Pero pag physical naman, cruelty. Yan. Yung cruelty naman, yung keyword mo doon, killing me softly. Yun. Why killing me softly? Yun yung pinatay mo na, papatayin mo, torturin mo pa, mga yan, di ba? Tatadtarin mo na parang corn beef, o so mga yon. O kaya pinikpikan mo pa bago mo patayin, that's killing me softly, that's cruelty. Mamaya yon sa ibang paragraph naman. But that's still aggravating. So that's the difference between ignominy, ano? Yan. So next we have there so usually ito yung mga crimes ng ignominy, ano? Crime must be against chastity, less serious physical injury, light or grave coercion, and murder. Yan. Okay? In front of the loved ones. Yan. Or to make it more humiliating. Next, that the crime be committed after an unlawful entry. So, unlawful entry means when an entrance is effected by way not intended for that purpose. Iba ang dinaanan mo. Okay, so, unlawful entry. Like yung mga magnanakaw, minsan dumadaan sila sa bubong, sa ilalim ng flooring, di ba? Yan, sa mga bangko. That is unlawful entry. That as means to the commission of the crime, a wall, roof, door, or window be broken. So, pwede rin yon as aggravating. Pag sa window sila dumaan, sa door, roof, or a wall. Binasag nila just to facilitate their entrance. Okay? Next, the crime committed with the aid of person under 15 years of age. Bata ang pinag-transact mo, pinag-deliver mo ng drugs, ganoon, bawal yon. Siya yung pinapasok mo, pinakyat mo para mabuksan nyo yung bahay, yan. Okay, ang career mo sa krimen mo ay bata, that is aggravating. Or by means of motor vehicle, airship, or other similar means. Okay? And the last, ito yung sinasabi ko kanina, yung cruelty. Okay, that the wrong done in the commission of the crime be deliberately augmented by causing other wrong, not necessary for its commission. Okay, that's cruelty. When the culprit enjoys and delight in making his victim suffering, is slowly and gradually causing him unnecessary physical pain in the consumption of the criminal act, that is cruelty. Okay. Next, we have the fifth circumstances, the alternative circumstance. Their concept, alternative circumstances, are those which must be taken into consideration as either aggravating o kaya pwede ring maging mitigating in accordance with the nature and effect of the crime. So, kaya ang alternative kasi depende yan. Pwedeng maging aggravating or mitigating. Pag aggravating, it increase the crime, it increase the penalty. While mitigating, it reduce the penalty. So what are these three? The relationship, intoxication, and the degree of instruction. So we have here the relationship, we have there the intoxication, and the last is the degree of instruction. Yan. Now, we have there the relationship, intoxication, and degree of instruction or education. So, in relationship, paano mo masasabi na yung relationship ay aggravating or mitigating? If the relationship, if the crime committed, when we say relationship, yon yung spouse, ascendant, descendant, legitimate, natural, or adopted brother or sisters, or relative by affinity in the same degree. Yan. So, if the crime is against person or chastity, crimes against person and chastity, Okay? Relationship is, if that is crimes against person or chastity, relationship is aggravating. If the crime is against property, relationship is mitigating. Yan, tandaan nyo yan ha. If a crime is against if the crime is against person and chastity, aggravating ang relationship. Pero pag yan ay crimes against property, mitigating ang relationship. Intoxication. If you are habitual drunkard, okay? Habitual drunkard ka, intoxication is aggravating. Okay? Ano pa? You use yung intoxication, you use intoxication to facilitate the commission of the crime, that is still aggravating. But if you are not a habitual drunkard, that is mitigating. And you do not use that intoxication to facilitate crime, that is mitigating. Yan naman yung Okay, alternative, those which will be taken, sabi natin kanina, as mitigating or aggravating. So, relationship, intoxication, degree of instruction, and degree of education. Yung degree of instruction and education, yung pinag-aralan mo. Pag mababang pinag-aralan mo, usually they can account that as mitigating. Pero pag mataas ang pinag-aralan mo, related pa sa pinag-aralan mo yung ginawa mong krimen, that is now aggravating. Okay, so relationship, mitigating. If crimes against property, mitigating. If crimes against person and crimes against chastity, that is aggravating. Okay, that is in terms of relationship. Intoxication, mitigating if not habitual, not subsequent to the plan to commit crime. So, hindi mo ginamit yon para magawa mo yung krimen. To embolden, hindi mo naman ginamit to embolden yourself to do crime. So, hindi mo yung ginamit, that is mitigating. Not habitual, not subsequent in the commission of the crime, that's mitigating. Paano naman maging aggravating? Habitual. Pag ikaw ay habitual, aggravating yan. And you used to embolden yourself, okay, subsequent to the commission of the crime, you intentionally, okay, you intentionally intoxicate yourself to commit a crime, that is aggravating. So yan. And next, we have degree of instruction, mitigating. Low degree of instruction or education, mitigating. High degree of instruction or education, aggravating. Okay? So, yan. And we have the absolutory cause. Sinabi na natin to kanina, ano? Yung they do not call it under Article 12. So, we discussed already the absolutory cause. Article 20, yung accessory who are exempt from criminal liability. Yan, absolutory. Yung Article 89, yung extinction of criminal liability. Yan yung death. Okay, pag namatay na yung tao, wala na siyang criminal liability. Na-serve niya na yung sentence niya, wala na siyang criminal liability. Amnesty, absuelto ka na. Absolute pardon, absuelto ka na. Okay? Prescription of crime, pag nag-prescribe yung krimen na ginawa mo, absuelto ka na. Prescription of penalty, nag-prescribe yung parusa mo, absuelto ka na. And marriage of the offended woman, you are already absolved because your criminal liability is already extinguished. Okay? 247, yan. Death under exceptional circumstance under Article 247. Discovering secrets through seizure of correspondence by ward or by guardian is not penalized. Okay? Article 332, ito yung sinabi natin kanina, in case of theft, swindling, and malicious mischief. Swindling or estafa or malicious mischief, there is no criminal liability on this spouse. So yeah, we actually did this already. Yan. Stake of fact, absolutory cause. Somnambulism is also absolutory cause. Walking while sleeping, yan, somnambulism. Stake of facts are also absolute. Extenuating circumstance are those do not included or not enumerated in Article 13, mitigating circumstance, but they have the same nature. An unwed mother killed her child in order to conceal a dishonor, mitigating. Okay? A concealment of honor by mother in a crime of infanticide, extenuating. A crime of adultery on the part of a woman abandoned by her husband, okay, mitigating. A kleptomania who cannot resist, stealing, mitigating. Okay? Next, we discussed this already in our first video. Those who are criminally liable in grave and less grave, we have the principal, the accomplice, and the accessory, and the principal and accomplices. No? So, just go back with our first. Yan. Ano yung principal, ano yung accessories, yan, by direct participation, inducement, or induction, and by insuperable cooperation or indispensable cooperation, rather, indispensable cooperation. And accessories, kanina, Article 18, we talk about the accomplice, we also discussed that, and accessories. You can view this in our first video, Then by profiting, by concealing and destroying the body of the crime, by harboring and concealing or assisting the escape of the principal, that is in accessory. Accessory. And Article 20, accessories who are exempt from criminal liability. I also discussed this under absolutory cause.